Well, as you can tell by the title of this video, it's an updated 2020 NFL mock draft. It's exciting stuff, I know. Try to contain your excitement. And for those of you that have already tuned out the video and are looking at all 32 picks from our one-round mock draft, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves. But anyways, let me just take a moment or two to talk about some of my picks and my thought process and my rationale. I would really love to go into this more, but I'm trying to record multiple videos at the same time, and I'm battling an abscess in my gums right now. This has not been a very fun past 72 hours or so. You're looking at me and you're like, it looks like a freaking chipmunk got something, some nuts or something swollen in his freaking mouth. No, it's just my gum is out to here. Anyways, nonetheless, let's move on. One thing stays steady, Joe Burrow going number 1 to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think right now, at least the way it sits right now, at the end of November, it's really hard to refute this pick. But again, crazier things can happen. I think there's no question that the Bengals are going to be looking quarterback in this upcoming draft. There's probably no question they are the hands-down favorites right now to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I think there's no question right now that without deeper dives and deeper analysis, that Joe Burrow is going to be the top quarterback taken in the 2020 draft. There's always that chance that that could change. And I could come back here in a month or two and make a stronger case for somebody else. That is very possible as well. But for the moment, that's the way this looks. With the second pick, the Giants, Chase Young, just an example of taking arguably the best player in the draft. Your team stinks. You have needs everywhere. While arguably you would certainly love to draft somebody in the offensive side of the ball to help out your young quarterback, Daniel Jones. You know, maybe you would take an offensive tackle here, and that certainly would be a need, but maybe that would be a slight reach, maybe not. But do you really want to risk passing up on a potential future multiple-time Pro Bowl or maybe borderline Hall of Fame type of talent in a guy like Chase Young? If you're the Giants, it's going to be really, really, really hard to do so. And if Dave Gettleman's still there, I'd be surprised if he passed up on the opportunity to take Chase Young. A lot of you may be surprised with me having the Dolphins taking Jerry Jeudy at number 3. It may potentially seem a bit high to take a wide receiver number 3, especially with this being a deep and loaded receiver class. That could be true, but that could also mean that a lot of guys are going to go in the first round, many more than I even have mocked here. When you look at this for the Dolphins, Burrow's already off the board. Do you really feel confident with taking Justin Herbert at number 3? Ooh. If you're the Dolphins as well, with some of the injury concerns you've got to have about Tua Tagovailoa. Easy for me to say. Sorry, Tua. But when you look at Tua and some of the injuries he's had and some of the other questions about him, do you really feel that comfortable and confident with taking him number 3 overall? You'll notice I have him dropping all the way to number 22, which certainly could be a possibility. But with the Dolphins having 2 other first-round picks after pick 3, and they're right now falling in the 20s, they would have the ammo to potentially move up into the top half of round number 1 if they wanted to go after Tua or a different quarterback. But right now, if you think about it and you said, okay, we want Tua, but we want to target him a little later, we want to get a game breaker outside and Jeudy to put with whatever young quarterback we end up with, that would make a lot of sense too. You know, the bottom line is the Dolphins have a lot of needs, and they just need players, and they need studs. Ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, they need that quarterback. That is absolutely true, but they need players. Jeudy would make a lot of sense there. The Redskins at pick 4, to me, it would have to be an offensive tackle. The Trent Williams situation, some of the injury problems they've had in the offensive line the past couple of years. Is it going to be Andrew Thomas from Georgia? Is it going to be Austin Jackson? Is it going to be Wirfs from Iowa? I guess time will tell. But I would expect Washington to very strongly consider drafting an offensive lineman and an offensive tackle with their first-round pick again, because this is a team that spent a first-round pick on a quarterback in this past draft, Dwayne Haskins. You got to do whatever you can to try and protect the young man. The Broncos at number 5, you might look at this, maybe you're surprised and maybe you're not, but Derrick Brown sure as hell looks like a stud and looks like somebody that Vic Fangio, the head coach of the Broncos, assuming he would stay for 2020, would look at and say, you know what? I think this guy's got a Keem Hicks level of talent, and I certainly do. As a result, it might be really, really hard to pass up on that level of talent. Even if you said, yes, you'll have Von Miller next year. You'll have Bradley Chubb returning from an ACL injury. But, you know, that's a Broncos team that has a lot of needs in a lot of places. You just got to get a marquee player, and Derrick Brown feels like the type of guy that would be a marquee player. In terms of the other quarterbacks that I have going in round number 1, you'll see I have Justin Herbert going number 11 to the Chargers. Look, the Chargers have to really take a look in the mirror this year, assuming that they end up not making the playoffs, and saying, how much longer can we hitch our wagon to Phillip Rivers, and or how much longer is Phillip Rivers even going to play, frankly? Do you want to get caught with your pants down and not be prepared for the future? I have some reservations and some concerns about Herbert, especially when we talk about Tua and some of his durability questions. Well, Herbert hasn't been able to stay healthy up until this year. This is the healthiest he's ever been, even though he has that prototype size. Justin Herbert, to me, right now, the way I look at it, looks the part, but doesn't always play the part, if that makes sense. I've got the Panthers at number 16 taking Jake Fromm from Georgia. Could be Jacob Eason from Washington here as well. You look at the Panthers and you say, more likely than not, they're going to move on from Cam Newton next season, which I feel like ultimately is the right thing to do. Now, some Panthers fans might have heartburn about that, and I understand it and I get it, but you have to understand the reality of what that organization is facing. They're probably going to move on from Cam Newton. Now, the question is, do you want to do that with Kyle Allen, knowing that you'll probably have him for another couple of years on a cheap contract? Did he really show you enough? Or if you feel like a guy like Jake Fromm is an upgrade, do you just go ahead and take him here? You eliminate all doubt about the Cam Newton situation, and you give yourself that true guy that is going to excite the fan base yet again and help get over the loss of a Cam Newton. Because if you look at it, what's the best way to get over Cam Newton is to draft another quarterback. And I compare this to the Falcons situation coming off of the 2007 season, which was a total disappointment. They're sitting there with the third pick. And after the Dolphins and the Rams made their mistakes by taking Jake Long and Chris Long, respectively, here the Falcons people are talking about Glenn Dorsey and this guy and that guy, maybe Darren McFadden, who knows. And all of a sudden, here comes Matt Ryan. What was the best way to move on from the whole saga of Michael Vick? Was to draft Matt Ryan. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, in the least bit, if that's what the Carolina Panthers proactively chose to do in this upcoming draft. And then, as I referenced earlier, I've got Tua Tagovailoa going 22 to the Dolphins. That doesn't mean they would ultimately draft him there. They could potentially trade up. He could potentially fall. At this moment, am I ready to make the claim that he's going to fall out of the first round entirely? No. But crazier things have happened. And I most certainly could potentially see it. Just because people have been talking about him for a year plus, being a can't-miss first-round pick as a quarterback, doesn't mean he's ultimately going to end up that way. If you remember, a few years ago, people were talking about the top three quarterbacks in the draft class being Christian Hackenberg, Connor Cook, and Cardale Jones in whatever order you wanted to put them in. And you know how that went down. So sometimes we've got to remember, just because guys have been projected and mocked to a certain place, it's not actually a match of the reality of where they could potentially go. And that's just kind of how I see it. So anyways, you can check out all my picks, picks 1 through 32 for round 1 in the description box below. Let me know your thoughts. I'll do another mock draft in a couple of weeks. I'll see you later.